I think you were about to respond to Mr. Steele's assertions about the indictment and YSL being our witness testifying about them being a criminal street gang.
Yes, Your Honor. So first, there was the assertion that Investigator Racy had to be an expert to talk about the fact that his investigation led that YSL is a gang. That he does not need to be an expert. That is what his investigation revealed. Within the indictment, Your Honor, while the specific charge identified the blood gang, when you look at the preamble or the background of this indictment, especially the RICO charge, it talks about YSL and YSL being a blood gang subset. And my next question I was getting ready to pose to him before the objection is, you said subset, tell me what do you mean? So he could have elaborated as to what was contained further in the indictment, which was in the charge it says blood gang. However, he knew and learned from his investigation that YSL was a gang. Why is this important? If you listen to this call, Your Honor, he talks about in the indictment that it said YSL Enterprise. And so at that moment, he asked Amina to put him on the paperwork. So it looks like, well, he tells her, I need you to put me on the paperwork. And then later on, he tells his girlfriend, remember to tell Amina, put me on the paperwork so it doesn't look like street business. And so what I have to get the witness to testify and the jury can believe or not is, well, what did you understand it to be before? And why is that significant that he needed to be placed on paperwork so it can look like it's not street business?
Yeah, I remember us talking about this last week.
And so it puts the call in context, and that's why we went into that line of questioning.
Anything further, Mr. Steele first, and then Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Because I did cover this last week. We covered this already, so.
Your Honor, I don't understand how Mr. Williams is having a trial that's fair.
I'm sorry.
I don't understand, from my perspective, Mr. Williams is not having a fair trial. I cannot cross-examine Mr. Winfrey. Now, this witness is telling us what he means by having things not look like street items.
Shit, I remember.
Okay.
Okay, so.
I don't understand how any of this is coming in. Amina Diab is not a witness that the state is calling at all. I don't have a burden, you keep telling me, which I know the law, but you keep telling me that, but it feels like I have a burden because I have to clean all this mess up. And the
if you choose to do so, sir. And that's your characterization of it. So
the indictment, quote unquote, redacted, is a farce. This thing has, I don't know if you looked at your copy, there's blanks here that identify Jeffrey Williams. I mean, you'd have to be a deceased person not to realize that the indictment is charging Jeffrey Williams in it. And the state just goes on like, this is no big deal. You know, I have a big deal. This entire case should have witnesses who are competent to be cross-examined, and they don't. I, again, object. This gentleman is testifying. He has no basis in saying what Jimmy Winfrey meant or didn't mean. The recording, because of your ruling, speaks for itself. He shouldn't be able to interpret it, just like I can't interpret it. And it was never even done. What the jurors won't know is that Amina Diab didn't give any paperwork at all.
Yeah,
in fact, what they don't know is that Jeffrey Williams, because the state won't probably play it, a recording with Jeffrey Williams where this detective asked Jeffrey Williams, does Jimmy Winfrey work for you as your road manager? And Mr. Williams laughs and said, are you ridiculous? I have real legitimate people. So all of this is the state of Georgia getting out a theory that is not based in fact and that should not come into this courtroom. This entire, since the state has been allowed to say, does this help the investigation? This case has gone south. Maybe it was south already, but it has gone so south, I can't do anything. Those are all my objections. I'm moving for a mistrial. I have no idea why this gentleman got to say Amina Diab works on the legitimate side of the business. We're presumed innocent. He has no right to say that. And then this indictment is all hearsay under the Brown case, State versus Brown, which the Honorable Court agreed with, yet the state's using the indictment as a weapon. They're saying it says it in the indictment. Mr. Winfrey pled Alford. He's not testifying. You let it in as a statement against his penal interest. Well, that's only against him. He's not on trial. It can't be a co-conspirator statement because it is a statement that does not further any supposed conspiracy because it spills the beans. So for all of those reasons, I mean, we could just use one, but for all of those reasons, I named 3, 4, 5, or 6, I'm respectfully asking the court to strike all of his testimony that goes into anything anyone else said and the investigation, and let's wipe this slate clean, and please, I just want to go forward and have people to cross-examine.
This is the second time you've made the same argument, sir. I understand it, and it's your right to do so. All right. Unless you have anything else, Mr. Shart?
Your Honor, of course, I agree with what Mr. Steele just said about Jimmy Winfrey's plea being coming in as evidence against the rest of us when he is not taking the stand. But I'm going to go one further than Mr. Steele because in their line of questioning, they are asking about the indictment that Jimmy Winfrey pled to. And the jurors are following what they're talking about. They're asking about the indictment, their indictment, the plea. And then they say, and what gang was involved? And then the investigator's going to say YSL when we can all look at this indictment, which shouldn't be coming in evidence in my estimation. But if we're going to let it in over our objection, at least let's be honest about what it says. It doesn't say YSL. He pled to the count.
The preamble say YSL?
He pled to...
Does the preamble say YSL?
Preamble?
Does the preamble... Answer my question, please.
Sure, the preamble does, but
okay,
not the
all right.
count.
So you
Not
have to
the
read...
counts that he
Okay,
pled to.
you have to read the preamble in conjunction with the
Your Honor, he pled
with the
to
counts.
specific
It's just
counts.
like it's similarly situated to the preamble that you have in this indictment.
But he pled to specific counts, Your Honor.
Okay, but that
The
doesn't mean
preamble-
that the factual predicate of the preamble doesn't apply, right?
Well, I suggest that...
Does it apply or not?
I disagree with you completely.
Does it apply or not?
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
It
all right.
does not. He pled
Okay.
to specific counts. And,
Okay.
and the state really missed an opportunity because they should have made this indictment 3 times as long, and they could put the whole story, the whole narrative in this document that we are not defending ourselves against, and we cannot cross-examine, and they could have put it even more in front of the jury. This is the way we're going to do it.
Okay, all right. Your second argument as to this as well. Okay, anything else, Ms. Hilton?
Your Honor, I think the state has said it. Given the jail call that we just listened to, Mr. Winfrey himself referenced the indictment and referenced him reading of it. And so all of my questions followed through based upon that jail call. Given that this was an open pending investigation at the time that this jail call was made, this is relevant area of what was relevant to Agent Racy at the time where he heard this jail call, which is there was an indictment, it was open, and now in the midst of his investigation, Mr. Winfrey is asking to be put on the paperwork. We can infer it's the legitimate side of the business. Now, if Mr. Steele wants to argue that Ms. Diop was not a part of the legitimate business, they've been arguing throughout this entire trial that YSL is a music label. So that would be the legitimate side of the business. If their argument is no longer that doesn't exist, then we can move on. But for the purpose of this call references him trying to get put on paperwork so it doesn't look like street business. Paperwork, legitimate; street business, not legitimate. And so we are trying, this became relevant to him, Your Honor. And given all the reasons that we have stated before, this wasn't spilling the beans. This was him trying to cover the conspiracy, which was him shooting at the bus involving Mr. Dwayne Carter. So for all the reasons stated, Your Honor,
right.
We would exit. You said overrule the objection.
I'm going to overrule the objection, Mr. Steele. I will give you a continuing objection. I'm going to note that you've moved for mistrial once again. I'll also note that you have asked the court for a mistrial again before the positing of the next question. So with that,
I'm joining the motion for mistrial, and also I'm asking you, in granting that continuing objection, are you granting it to all of us?
The Harvey rule applies unless otherwise stated, so it would apply for all of you. The motion for mistrial as well as the continuing objection.
I'll ask for a motion to sever parties then.
Okay, I'm gonna deny that motion at this point in time, sir.
I want to provide instruction.
And I will deny that as well at this time.